Please, tell the sheriff I shot him.
Who?
Tell him he's still on the loose.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
What's up, everybody? This is Dan with Can You Take It, and welcome to Podcast Episode 2. We would like to welcome all of our ghoulish friends to this Halloween episode of the podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing some Halloween memories and nostalgia about, growing up in the 80s and 90s. To me, one of the heydays of the trick-or-treating. So I've got with me today Brandon, and Adam joins us again, and Jonathan is here with us on episode 2. And let's get right into it, guys. Halloween memories. Let's say, how old is everybody?
I'm almost 30.
Almost 30. I'm 30.
I'm 33.
Yeah, I'm 28.
So we got pretty similar ages here. We grew up around a similar time in the late 80s, early 90s. I honestly loved Christmas growing up, but I can't think of a funner time than Halloween. It was the pinnacle of the year for me, and I was never crazy dressing up or anything like that. I did dress up, but to me it was just getting out with your friends at night. Your parents weren't even there most of the time. You were just running the streets, going wild. And the three of us, Brandon and Adam and I, all grew up in the same suburban town outside of Memphis, Tennessee. So we kind of had similar, experiences. But Jonathan, tell us a little bit about your childhood background.
Well, I'm an Army brat, and so I usually moved about every year and a half to 2 years, and would usually move over the summer between school years to make it easier for my sister and I to transition into new schools. So Halloween was actually a big moment for us growing up because you'd been in school for a few months, and it was a time where it kind of proved if you had made friends yet. So for me, it was like...
we got a nice train.
Yeah, I got that train coming through.
It's Doc Brown. The time train.
It might be the terror train,
too.
which we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, damn. I forgot about the terror train.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Go ahead.
So yeah, just that was how I knew if I'd made friends, was if a group of people invited me to go hang out with them on Halloween, especially in middle school. Mm-hmm. By the time you're in middle school, that's when you're a little too cool to dress up, and you're starting to, wanting the toilet paper things and, Dazed and Confused, smash mailboxes type stuff.
Yeah.
So, no, Adam's no, I never did any of those things.
No, you're never too old to do those things. I rolled a house last night.
But
so,
well, we grew up, the suburb that Dan and I and Adam grew up in was kind of it was, at the moment that we were growing up then, was when so many people were moving into the town to send their children to the schools there. So there was a huge explosion of young people at that time in the late 80s and early 90s. So it was a great time for being a kid and going trick-or-treating. And my neighborhood, after I grew up, there weren't any more young kids in the neighborhood. So it was at that time, that was the right place at the right time for Halloween.
yeah.
I mean, it was there were so many people walking the streets at that time. You go to my mom's neighborhood now, and there's no kids.
Oh, I mean, not even talking about Halloween, just talking about growing up. Yeah. Our street was a small street, and there was no less than 15 kids on that street. And we would be out every Saturday, Sunday playing, all summer long playing. There were fields behind our houses that we could play in. It was just so much outdoor playing. I know I watched a ton of movies and a ton of TV growing up, but compared to the kids nowadays, I played out a ton. And it was just because there were so many kids moving into our community at the time. And Halloween was, for the first couple of years, all the kids in that street. So we would all gang up and go hitting these houses up. Probably ran into Adam a few times and never knew it because we were in that same area. Mm-hmm. We'd go back in there where you lived.
Well, I don't remember trick-or-treating from where my mom's house was, which was near where Dan lived but my dad lived in an apartment for a while. And that was always, maximum trick-or-treating was in an apartment complex because every building had 8 residences. So you could get in a multi-gang team and each hit a door and just load up. But people would also do the classic thing where they leave the pail outside the door.
Whooped.
Yeah. Please take one.
Yeah.
I would always try to be somewhat respectful of that, but
You take more
inevitably...
You're at least taking a handful.
Right, you get a handful. And then I'd always justify, well, at least I didn't take the whole thing.
Well, we would always kind of mark that house on our memory, and you'd stay out till 9 or 9:30, and you'd hit that house on the way back, and then you'd take it all. You'd let the people come through, but it's like, hey, nobody coming by. We're done. Snatch. And we would get where Brandon lives now. Actually, we went through that neighborhood, and I don't know if this guy worked at a candy store or a candy factory, but he had just boxes of pretty good candy, and we emptied that joker out. But it was at the end of the night. It was like 10 o'clock at night. Nobody else was out there.
I like that. That's like the rebellious nature of that. Gives an insight of how rebellious we are.
Probably one of the worst things I've ever done in my life.
Right. It's like that's a nerd rebellion. It's like, oh, I'm getting all the candy, but I'm gonna wait till everybody has a chance and an opportunity and some fair play, and then I'm getting all that motherfucker.
Well, I can tell you that I believe it was 5th grade. I had a couple of buddies, and to say that they were, you always had those kids who kind of wanted to be older than they were, so they listened to music that was popular at the time.
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, Guns N' Roses, or for us it was Smashing Pumpkins and stuff like that, which I was well aware of, but I wasn't wearing a T-shirt with Smashing Pumpkins on it in the 5th grade. Well, so I was buddies with a couple of guys who were really into that, and we had planned to all go trick-or-treating together. And this was the era where I think it existed, but we didn't have it, call waiting. So there was one phone line coming into our house, and I had an older sister. She was on it jaw-jacking. They called to tell me where to meet and where to what. Missed it. And so I sat there and waited and never got the call. My mom was like, all right, well, I guess, they went on without you.
This is the saddest story ever.
Well, it gets sadder.
Let's hear.
So we went out, me and my mom. I can't even honestly remember what I was dressed at. So 5th grade, how old are you in the 5th grade?
10.
Well, I would have been 11
9,
then.
10.
So, yeah, I was 11. So we went walking through the neighborhoods, and so first thing we ran into was a dude busting out of his house with a chainsaw, ran right at me. I don't know if he had the chain off of it. I don't know, but I was scared to death. And my mom was like, hey, buddy, get out of here, like yelling at him.
Hey, buddy.
Something like that. And so that was already off to a good start. And as we went, started accumulating some good candy. And I can remember getting to a house, and a younger gentleman, maybe in his late teens, 19 or whatever, was like, hey, man, great costume. Great to see you. Dumped a rotten banana right in my bag, just opened. It was opened already, and he just slung it right in there. Dropped this thing in there, got sticky banana junk all over everything. And I remember he shut the door, and I walked back and looked at my mom, and I was like, we can go home now. It was just done. I was done. It's like I had looked forward to it so much. Ruined.
You got stood up all because of call waiting.
All because of call waiting. Technology is a damn marvel now. There are no kids getting left behind on Halloween now, thanks to the internet and iPhones.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about the differences, in decades from past into now. And I think about the costumes and like the accessories. Like we would go to, there was a place called, I think, Party City, and they would have, seasonally, would have a ton of Halloween stuff back then. So you could get all kinds of like swords and all kinds of accessories. I mean, you could get rapiers, you could get broadswords. I mean, bastard swords. I mean, knives, daggers, and now everything at Walmart is commercialized. It's some sort of branded. Yeah. Oh, it's Captain America, or it's some puffed up Hulk costume, or it's something that's a property already, and there's no, hey, kind of make your own thing.
Not at all. I mean, how many years did I go as a hobo?
That was a
Halloween?
staple. That's when you forgot to get a costume.
You say that, but I went as a Ninja Turtle like 8 years in a row when I was a kid.
Did you make the costume?
I think, yeah, definitely my mom helped me a lot with it. It wasn't a bought thing because my mom never was into
Right.
buying that kind of stuff. So definitely the headband and all that. And I was probably Leonardo, so the sword probably was a generic sword that came from something. But yeah, I went as that so many years. But I guess it was harder to get the branded TMNT
Yes,
stuff.
I mean the branded stuff back in the day was basically a plastic apron and a plastic mask.
Yep.
So I went as Cookie Monster when I was probably 3 or 4, and it's like that super crappy mask with the wire
string.
and then like an apron that you put on says "I love cookies."
Yeah. Well, that like string was stapled to the plastic
It broke
mask,
inevitably
so it was gonna break before the night
every
was over.
time.
And then you held it to your face.
Yeah, we went as pro wrestlers. My mom stuffed pillows in oversized sweatpants for me and my brother to go, and we just beat each other the entire night. I believe that year, instead of trick-or-treating, they conned us into going to a church event that was set up to get you away from trick-or-treating,
Oh, God.
The
yeah.
devil's
What do they
I
call
did that
those
with my
now?
grandma one time.
It
Yeah.
was the worst.
What do they call that? Where they do like the people? Because we live in a super safe growing up.
It's a fall festival.
The Fall Fest.
Yeah.
Welcome to Christ the Rock's Fall Festival this year. We've got some delectable delights for the kids.
The pumpkin patch.
Pumpkin
and the
patch.
hayride. We've got
The
a nice
hayride.
hayride for the whole family.
It's a
Who wants
safe
to go on a
hayride. Do not
hayride?
be scared.
But that's what I mean. It's like we grew up in a very safe community, and for some people, like that apparently isn't safe enough nowadays. Where they do the parking lot trunk things. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
hate that.
Where they just have a bunch of cars with the trunks popped open
Yeah.
and the candy inside.
Yeah.
What the hell is that called?
In our day, you got put in the trunk and taken away, never to be
so
seen again.
Glad my dad and all my friends' dads were in the Army and were just happy to get all the kids out of the house because they just wanted to sit at home and drink beer and talk about who they murdered that week. They didn't care what you were doing, where you were.
Safety wasn't an issue.
Safety was never an issue.
How many times did we hear that there was, hey, check the candy.
There's
at
razor
school,
blades.
There's blades in the candy. Check it. Do not eat anything that was not packaged or prepackaged, But people would still be handing out some homemade popcorn balls, and that shit got thrown away immediately if it
definitely.
went in my bag. Don't eat that. Don't eat that.
It
They
probably
made
tasted
it themselves.
nasty anyway. Who's
You
going to
know
eat
it
that?
did. You know what the worst was? Let's name the worst candies
Okay,
that you
I got a
could
top
get.
3 already.
All right, go.
Number 1 for me was people that handed out them little small ass cereal boxes. You ever get any of those?
That's legitimate.
never-
I'd be all right with that.
I'm not all
I
right with
wouldn't go
that.
right without Halloween.
I'm not all right with Frosted Flakes.
I don't know if I ever got that though, but that I would be intrigued by that.
I got it.
That's the equivalent of going to like a nice cocktail bar and then popping out one of them little things from like the airplanes, And just
Yeah.
putting that down.
Yeah, it's like,
like a mini bar size serving.
Well, Kellogg is kind of they have a big factory here in the Memphis area, so I'm sure this person will probably worked at Kellogg because every kid got a little box of cereal.
I mean, that'd
He's
be
been laid off
Yeah,
now.
if you didn't get some freebies there, that dude was spending some money on Halloween. So that's what I mean.
It had to
the
be
worst
free.
candy is always the cheap out candy.
Yeah.
And okay, for sure, those
This candy.
shitty ass. They're color coded for Halloween.
Orange and black.
The orange and black little.
suck.
I don't even know what's in there. There's a little peanut butter.
They
They're
look
in
like
a little wrapper.
peanuts. They're the ones that are.
No,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
thinking of circus peanuts, maybe.
Yeah, circus peanuts.
Those
I
are
don't know.
No, these were the ones
These
that
are
are wrapped,
wrapped
in
like
orange
bubble
and
gum.
black.
I know what
They're
you're
the
talking about,
shape
yeah.
of a circle.
Are they taffy or something?
They're like a
It's like a
peanut butter
peanut butter
taffy,
taffy.
but it is not.
That's nasty.
Does not work with your teeth properly. You're chewing on it. Doesn't taste good, and it's got some sort of tough stuff in the middle.
Really? I don't know if I ever even made
Maybe
it
I was
through
eating
one.
some
I
old
was just
ones.
like, fuck
You
that.
threw those.
Okay. And this makes me realize because since as you grow up, I've seen in stores where they have like candy from the decades, and they got like candy from the 50s. I've begun to realize that the 60s was the worst decade for candy there was, maybe.
Really?
50s and 60s, because a lot of these things seem to originate then. But I don't know anyone who likes them. I think I've heard one person in my life say they like them. The little lick nips, they're called, the little colas. The little
those are
wax.
gross.
The wax that you bite.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's like, it's probably just there's like cancer in a wax tin.
That's what it was. They invented plastic, and they're like, "There's more uses to this." than
Eat
come
this.
Up. We
have
can
some-
chew on this for a while.
We have some extra plastic left over from this casing we used on these tank parts.
Well, they were
Let's melt
disgusting.
them down.
What would have been some of the God tier candies. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about a little Reese's peanut butter.
Those were the ones that got separated first. Those
Really?
you only allowed for one a day for me.
Lemon heads, maybe lemon heads if you like sours.
Not me.
I was
Not
always
me.
more of a chocolate guy.
I'm going for
Any of this-
Snickers, Milky
yeah.
Way.
That's the
Snickers
thing
was
is,
really
Kit Kats, the Kit Kat
Kit Kats
minis.
rule.
I'm an even split on versus liking chocolate or fruit candy, but it seems like Halloween, the chocolate candy was what you wanted.
You
for
wanted
some
the
reason.
chocolate.
I don't know why.
It was the gold of that, currency. It's if you were trading, no one was trading a damn Twizzler for a Snickers. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I for one do not like the fruit candies very well. So to me, if someone gave me Nerds or something like that, that was like okay.
Yeah.
Those got eaten about November 20th.
It seems to correlate directly with fat and calorie content too.
Oh,
Those are the most
yeah.
valuable candies.
Yes. Yeah, I don't want that just sugar. Give me the chocolate and peanuts.
I think I rarely ever actually got to eat all my Halloween candy because my sister would somehow blackmail me out of it. It's like, you need to give me that candy.
Well, we plan on doing a candy tax this year, so Veronica will be having to pay. The younger they are, the higher the tax is. So it's
am I safe from this tax?
It's a 70% tax. So whatever she gets, we take 70% of it.
Okay.
I mean, we're going trick or treating with Brandon and his daughter, but I mean, they're probably going to get a ton of candy.
They don't need any
They don't
candy.
need any of it.
Okay, so how amateur or pro did you guys go with the bag you used to go trick or treating? Did you get the little bullshit pail?
Started out with a pail.
That ain't holding nothing.
Started out with the
It was
plastic.
always pillowcase.
Pillowcase.
Jack-o'-lantern.
Pillowcase was the way to go.
Always
Pillowcase.
pillowcase.
That when you get older, you get wise. And
The
you're like,
pillowcase.
Yeah.
And the pillowcase was no joke, dude. That was like you're gonna go from 6 at night to 10:30 at night, and you're gonna come home with diabetes in a bag. Okay.
You're gonna come home and Wilford Brimley's gonna be waiting for you. Tell you how to get your diabetes supplies.
Now don't eat all that candy right now,
Scrooge
son.
McDuck dive into it.
Oh
you know.
man, you dump
it out on the
You'd
floor.
immediately dump it out on the floor and start separating the garbage, the good stuff, and then your mom would come over there and try to pick one. Don't eat my candy, mom.
My dad always got his fair share of
He
whatever.
took the tax, man.
But
Yeah, my dad did too.
The best, and this didn't necessarily confine itself to Halloween, and I think I've told you this before, but it makes me wonder a little bit more about my sister, because she's almost 9 years older than me, and somehow my dad kept this con going until I was 6 or 7, so she was a teenager, and he would buy like a king-size candy bar for us to share, and he would like, okay, he'll break it in half, and he would always break it in half to where one side was bigger. So he knew we would complain and bitch that, oh, that's not fair. So he'd break it apart, and it'd be uneven, and one of us would go, no, she got more, he got more. He'd go, oh, my bad. And he'd eat the bigger one down till it was uneven again the other way, and he'd keep playing it, and by the time you got it, it was like little nubs. And it took like 3 or 4 times before I finally pointed out, I'm like, no, just give me whichever one. My sister was like 14 or 15. I'm a little
Still
concerned.
arguing, yeah.
I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
So now that we're talking about the past, I mean, what were some movies that we all maybe remembered from that time watching? Maybe we'll kind of do this chronologically. We talk about the past and what's some stuff that you guys maybe remember back in the day
Honestly,
that you would watch when you were a kid.
Earliest memory for a Halloween style kids movie would be Ernest Scared Stupid for me. We rented that. I don't know what year it came out, but I mean, it was like the best Ernest ever because I was such a I loved horror movies and monster movies. So it's like Ernest versus a troll.
Booger lips.
Hey, how about a bumper sandwich, Booger Lips? It's a great classic movie.
So what was the premise there? I remember the kids turned into little like wooden dolls.
They turn into wooden dolls. Ernest, there's a voodoo woman that lives in the woods, and this troll comes out, and at the end, a bunch of trolls come, and they got to stop them. And
How would he turn them into? I just remember like some glitter effect, and they would turn into the wood doll. I don't remember what happened.
They didn't do much. He just touched them or pointed at them.
Okay.
I think there wasn't anything too
I remember
special.
the showdown on the truck towards the end.
That's the best part. He has troll nunchucks and troll spray that Bobby and the other guy sold him. But also one that I talked about on the Halloween 31 Dave's video the other day. Is the Space Invaders.
Yes.
I watched that.
Love that movie.
Had that on VHS. Watched it every year. Watched it this year and enjoyed it. I remember this part being real funny, but I even laughed about it this time, where the old people are sitting on the porch, and this is before the aliens show up, and they're playing the Orson Welles War of the Worlds. And she's like, remember when they played that? Jim, you went and put a bucket on your head and joined up with them Marine boys to go fight the Martians. And so they're making fun of him. And this is a kid's movie. He goes, when will you die? That's what he says to his wife. So then they're sitting there, and the spaceship comes by and blows the old people off their porch, and they're not even in the picture anymore. You hear the old woman say, I'll get the bucket. I don't know why. It just cracked me up this year. And Rachel looked at me like, you're an idiot.
I've never seen.
Oh, it's a great
It's a good one.
The effects are good. The aliens
The
are
little
really
aliens are hilarious.
Prepare to die, Earth scum.
It's weird to think about when you're a kid and like you're trying to sneak peeks at horror movies they show on television, and you get legitimately scared and like quit watching. And then you had the kid friendly horror movies like Casper or Hocus Pocus. I remember seeing
Never
that in
seen
theaters.
that.
Was it Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker? And
Yeah.
I forget the third
The
one.
other one, yeah.
I remember
other
a
one.
lot more of those kind of movies when I was a little.
Yeah.
Certainly Casper, a lot.
Really?
A lot of Casper. Like that ABC family type stuff, like movie of the week kind of thing.
I'm sure it's around now. It's
That
just like
was a
straight
lot.
to video.
Well, actually, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Was a movie from 1986, and I looked it up on IMDb a couple of days ago, and it said it came out in April, but I think I had seen it. I'm sure it replayed the next year, and it was an ABC Disney movie of the week.
Mr. Boogedy?
Mr. Boogedy.
Yes,
you know Mr. Boogedy.
I know Mr. Boogedy.
You ever seen Mr. Boogedy?
No.
And it was followed by
Christy Swanson's in it.
Bride of
Boogedy.
Yeah, and so the plot of Mr. Boogedy is
What is Mr. Boogedy?
okay. A family moves into a house somewhere up in New England, and they
looking this up.
build like gag gifts or something. That's like the dad is like a gag. He makes gags and
He owns a joke shop.
joke shop.
Yeah.
And so I remember this movie being a little bit scarier than apparently it was, because I was kind of young when I saw it. So
Well, if it came out in '86, I would have been 2. How you would have been?
I would have been 6. Yeah. So this house is haunted apparently by the ghosts of pilgrims. And what happened back in ye olden pilgrim times was this guy had unholy lust for a widow, and he needed to get her attention. So he made a deal with the devil and sold his soul to the devil for magic to get this woman to like him. And the devil gave him a cloak. And somehow the cloak malfunctioned or something and blew up the house and killed the man and killed the widow and her son. And so these people move into this house, and it's like all these silly hijinks. But I mean, it's really like dark themes, like selling your soul and all these things. And I don't know. It's at the end of the movie they fight Mr. Boogedy with some of the gag prop stuff. And
It's an early precursor to Home Alone.
yeah, right.
Versus,
Well, I just pulled up a picture of Mr.
is
Boogedy,
creepy
and
looking.
it's pretty creepy
It looks
for
scary
a
as
Disney
shit, doesn't
movie.
it?
Well,
That's
yeah,
why I remembered
Mr.
it being
Boogedy-
worse. Yeah.
Tons of kids movies in the 80s, even Space Invaders, which was early 90s. It's got cuss words in it. It's got adults talking like adults and kids kind of being kids. And the movies nowadays, that none of the kids really cuss or act like real kids, or nothing's. It's just so safe. You can't get away
Everything's
with
too
anything.
wholesome and safe. And it seems like it was such a recurring theme of kids' movies, Halloween or not, where the showdown at the end and they have all these gadgets and traps. And it doesn't seem like that happens anymore. I mean, it's nothing like the Goonies or Home Alone or anything like that.
No, the kids are stupid nowadays. They can't
Yeah.
invent anything like that. They're not going to come up with anything smart.
But some like CG dog will come in and save the day.
Well, for me, one of the greatest, and that's not even necessarily around Halloween time, just nostalgic shows was Are You Afraid of the Dark? And that came on Nickelodeon in the 90s throughout. I would say I'm probably one of my favorite shows of all time. I remember the first time we didn't have cable. My friend did. He invited me to come watch an episode, and I was at his house every Saturday from then on to see it, to the point where my dad was so annoyed I was at his house, he got cable. He bought cable so that I wouldn't go to that kid's house.
So you wouldn't miss your
He
shit.
missed his movie watching partner.
Well, that
The
kid,
black and white movies.
that kid is one that we went trick or treating with a lot, and growing up, we would go forever and ever. And there's a picture of me dressed as a clown, and him and his little sister. And I can't remember. I think he was a ninja. You know how many kids were ninjas?
I was.
The best costume I ever did was my Darth Vader costume. It was a black cape, a black shirt, and black paint on my face with a flashlight. Everyone knew exactly that the Sith Lord had showed up looking for candy that year, or they thought Al Jolson showed up. That was the year. Do you remember this, Brandon? That it snowed. We had snow. It was like 94, 95.
Yeah, that was crazy.
We got snow, so there was no trick or treating. I was trick or treated alone and only hit a couple of houses. It was pretty dismal.
I don't remember.
You don't remember that? 94. I can remember.
The 94 was the year of the ice storm.
It wasn't the ice storm came later, but this I can remember this day we went to Bojo's Antique Mall. And I found Star Wars novelization in a hardback book for like $2.50. Of course, I was collecting all things Star Wars at that time. So it was really cold. And the other thing I remember about it is my dad had a friend who was out of town, and he had horses. And in the barn, he had kittens. And he brought the kittens home because it was so cold. So we had kittens to play with. It was snowing on Halloween. It was just a real memorable.
And then you watched It's a Wonderful Life.
And then, yes, and then
it was beautiful.
We did have a fire going. I remember that. We had a fireplace. It was like the Waltons.
How did I miss this?
I don't know.
And it's weird. It's like Halloween is this weekend. It's 80 degrees today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it'll be cold by the time. It's so random about what the temp's going to be.
This Halloween season, I think I'd like to talk about. Maybe it's the fact that my daughter's about to turn 3, so she's getting a little more into it and communicating a lot more. Communicating too much. She won't shut up. But the season has been one of the best Halloweens this year for me personally. I don't know how much of that is attributed to the 31 days of Halloween movie watching I've been doing, but it's definitely gotten me in the mood. The weather has been one of the best falls we've had in forever. It's been generally fairly hot all the way to Christmas, and we've had some good 60-degree days. The leaves are turning. It's like being 1993 again. It's cool outside. In the fall, you're going to have to put a hoodie on over your costume, or your mom's going to try to make you do that. You can take it off as soon as you get up the street. But yeah, I think this year I've enjoyed Halloween more than I have in most of the years past. I would almost say I had become a bit of a Halloween grump.
Yeah, well, it's because it's like any holiday where it's made for kids. It doesn't matter if it's Halloween, Christmas. You grow up and you're so excited when it comes around because it's all about you. What am I going to get to do? Mm-hmm. Someone else is providing the costume. People are providing candy. They're giving stuff out at Christmas. You're just getting presents. You don't have to buy anybody anything. And then you get to this like limbo period where you and Brandon have kids of your own, and they're starting to be old enough to appreciate it. But like Jonathan and I, we don't have kids, so we're still in that. Well, we don't have anyone to like share it with and impart the traditions, but we're also not young enough to experience it ourselves. So you have to make Halloween fun for yourself at this age,
right?
Yeah, like it's all about how you make it. And how
I did have a cool experience about that whole like feeling it again last night. So my sister's a research scientist at one of the big research centers here in town, and so her lab is very international. She's one of the few Americans there, and carving jack-o'-lanterns is not a tradition in most countries. So every year for people in the lab that have never carved a jack-o'-lantern, she has them come over and we watch like some Halloween movies and carve jack-o'-lanterns, and it was just really cool to see. Like we had like 2 German guys, a Brazilian, an Australian, and a Chinese guy, and they all came over and carved jack-o'-lanterns, and it was like this kind of like little magical moment. And then my sister carved like the most amazing Dracula. It was like internet worthy level like Dracula, and I was like, who is this right now? Like, oh man, it was cool though. And we watched Army of Darkness, and then we watched The Killer Shrews.
Was that on TV, or did someone provide that?
The German guy recommended it.
He
was like, have you ever seen The Killer Shrews? And I was like, no. He's like, it's dogs, and it's awesome.
Yes.
And we watched it, and then I realized the Dawn of the Dead remake is the exact same plot. instead of zombies. Yeah.
Yeah,
they
they're
got to
trapped.
build. They're trapped. They got to build their little escape vehicle to the boat. And
Have you
it
ever
was-
seen that, Brandon?
No,
It's
I've never seen
It's
that.
an MST episode.
Oh, okay.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
It's a classic. Yeah, the dogs are dressed up like giant shrews, are I guess supposed to be sort of like mice or small rodents, but they have Doberman pinchers with shitty makeup and like outfits on to make them look like it.
Yeah, that and Taming of the Shrew are the only like pop culture references
That's
towards
true.
shrews that I know of. So
I think
they're
most-
like kind of like a weasel or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
there's
kind of like
some
little
sort
rats. Kinda.
Yeah. Speaking of rats, I
More
was
like
driving-
moles. More like moles.
I guess I was driving to work yesterday morning, and the biggest rat I've ever seen ran across the street, like one of those tree rats, and
yeah.
his tail was like a foot long.
They're huge.
And he was balling across the street. He was so big.
They're gross.
And they're disgusting.
Yeah.
Where, over near your house?
Yeah, I've actually had them in my house. I killed 3 of them in my attic last year. Yeah,
Really?
They're tree rats, so they're not dark black. They're brown like a squirrel, and they live up in the tree, and they get on your roof, and then get in your attic. They're a
They're a menace.
nuisance.
They're bad in our town where we live.
When I was living in Chicago, black squirrels. You ever seen black squirrels?
No,
Yeah.
they're black. Like
They're black, yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Ugh, Rachel hates squirrels. She's scared of them.
You know, the spirit of Halloween almost died for me when I was in college. And Adam and I went to the same university. I was a few years ahead of him. And I was a commuter student, and most of the students at this school are commuter students. And it's a private Catholic institution, and the school started as an order of brothers, Lasallian brothers, and there are not many brothers left anymore because not many people go into that field. But I had a teacher who was a teacher of astronomy, and one semester, the fall semester, around Halloween, I had the opportunity to do some extra credit. And we were going to do some stargazing and look at the planets and stuff late at night. And so I showed up that night for
This is not sounding like it's going. You're with a Catholic
Yeah, I was about
brother.
to say, were you is it
stargazing.
solo?
I was the only one that showed up for the stargazing, and it was in the parking lot of the university. And he drove like this little Subaru, probably like a '73 Subaru. I mean, he was a really good teacher, nice guy, nothing weird
But
about
also
this.
a lesbian.
But he had set up the telescope, and we took some observations of Saturn. You could see the rings on it. It was really cool. And then I looked over in the parking lot, and I saw 3 or 4 charter buses loading up with costumed some of my classmates, and they were going to some sort of party or something downtown. And then I realized at that point that I had no life.
That was one of those moments.
Yeah, I was doing extra credit work with the brother, looking at Saturn.
Now I do know quite a bit about cars, and you said it was a 70.
It was a mid '70s Subaru. I mean, it looked.
I think the interiors of those always smelled a lot like chloroform.
Yeah, probably.
It's a known thing.
Come
with
on,
those.
get in the back seat,
Yeah.
buddy. I'm going to show
Take
you
a
my
good-
stars.
Take a good sniff. My telescope's in the back.
I think
Yeah.
that car was a spaceship,
I
actually.
think that has a lot to do with it. You know, when you're young in the neighborhood, there's kids, and you're almost automatically going with those kids. And then you get older, and like Jonathan's talking about, his sister had a get together, and she put a lot of effort into making that fun. And it's like, if you don't know someone who's putting on a party like that or something like that,
Right.
you're not going trick or treating, so you kind of don't have an event to get festive about.
Well, and there's that huge shift because when you're a kid, it's about candy and dressing like scary outfit or like a fun outfit. And then when you get to that college, late teen, then it's just about
Whoring
girls
it
trying to
up.
dress as hoary as possible
Whore it
and
up.
have an excuse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I loved Halloween.
Yeah, I'm sure you never had an incident quite like that.
It's a different kind of candy that you're excited about.
Yeah, it's called roofies. You wrap them up in a bag and you hand them out to
Those
anyone
are the
who will
worst
take 'em.
tasting candies. I take it back. That was in my top 3. It's the peanut butter ones and the little sodas.
But it comes back, like you talked about, when you had your daughter, and I have a daughter now. And for me, when I moved back into a house and lived in the suburbs, and when I got to open my door for the first time for trick-or-treaters, it came back. That's where it came back. And even though I was kind of like, I don't have a life, blah, 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 blah. But, now it's fun. I enjoy it again. I'm looking forward to it quite a bit.
Yeah, this year ought to be, honestly, been one of the ones I've looked forward to the most. And I think, like the holidays, like Christmas, it's so in your face. Everything on TV, everything's decorated. So with Halloween, which to me is as big of an event, or was, that you don't. TV is not bombarded with Halloween-style shows. I mean, you get some horror movies here and there, but there's not as many decorations as there used to be. I mean, think about all the cool houses you would go up to where they would have a mannequin all dressed up and the windows open with that creepy cassette playing of scary music. Come on inside, and they would try to scare you, and it just really doesn't happen anymore. But Christmas has intensified, whereas Halloween has kind of died down.
Yeah,
They're already putting Christmas decorations.
Oh, Christmas shit is already out, and it just
it's in the
drives me
stores,
nuts.
It drives me nuts too.
There's no war on Christmas. There's a war on Halloween.
Exactly. There's a war on the devil worship on
war on Christmas.
Mischief Night.
Well, Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays by far because it's the same getting together, having a big meal, and enjoying each other's company without all the expectation of Christmas. So, but Thanksgiving just gets completely glossed over.
It does.
It's
football
it's
and Black Friday.
Pre-game Christmas, and
And Black Friday.
How much money are you going to spend?
Yeah.
People are like, I can't come to Thanksgiving dinner because I got to go to sleep early. I'm going to be camping out.
Man, I cannot. There's nothing that brings me more joy in this world than to get into Black Friday and hear how many people died at Walmart or some they
Trampled.
3 people were stampeded in Syracuse, New York, when a Walmart got out of control trying to get some generic laptops. Me and Brandon, I remember last year, were sending each other videos immediately of just like the pandemonium. This one woman, I'm gonna put a case on him. I'm gonna put a suit on you. These people just get out of their mind. And then this is what I do, and I do it alone because I would never subject my wife to it. But 2 or 3 o'clock on that Friday, I head to Best Buy and I get all the same Blu-ray and DVD deals that everyone else waited in line at because they're always still there.
Right.
They're always still there, and I get good deals and slowly walk around the store with no lines. It's just ridiculous. I don't get it.
Well, what those events are made for, it seems to be, is people who like technology enough to want like a big TV or a Blu-ray player or whatever, but not enough to know that the one that's going to be heavily discounted is probably not the one you need to get anyway.
No, they don't care. They know nothing.
Right. It's going to be like a middle of the road model that they're going to stay in line.
Yeah, I waited all night. I got this 720p,
Right.
27-inch TV for $13.
From Westinghouse.
Westinghouse, dude. This ain't no cheap TV, man.
Yeah.
Hisense.
Yeah, I'm watching the game on this. Gosh. Yeah, it's so frustrating. Also something that this year, the the pagan traditions of Halloween and our friend Glenn Danzig and his different bands and the songs that they sing about those kind of things. And I thought Brandon could maybe speak for a moment on some of that and if that ever played a part in your Halloween traditions or especially the correct pronunciation of his second band. How do you correctly pronounce that?
I believe the correct pronunciation is Samhain.
Samhain, that's what I've heard.
But people call it Samhain. Mm-hmm. And his philosophies and teachings really didn't play a big role in Halloween. They played a role in every day of my life. Glenn, I don't want to talk about him too much because all people equate with Glenn is a video they saw on YouTube now where he got punched by some big guy at a concert. But, when I was in high school, I wore jeans and black leather boots and Danzig shirts every day.
Yeah.
Every day for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's into the camp of it. He doesn't really believe any of that stuff.
Right.
He hangs out.
He just enjoys it.
He enjoys
likes
it. He liked comic books when he was a kid, so he's into that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and that's what it is.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that without Glenn Danzig, me and you would not even be friends. That was the original conversation we had. That was the first thing we ever talked about, and one of many things we still love and share in common. But I definitely have been bumping some Danzig and Samhain this holiday season, as I will now refer to the Halloween area.
It's kind of interesting, because he was extremely influential with the Misfits. You look at all the people now that wear Misfits t-shirts or talk about the Misfits. And then when he was touring as Danzig, he was the first guy to take out Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, White Zombie, a lot of bands. He gave them a shot. He put them on the bill, and so I think maybe he kind of gets forgotten in a digital age. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. There's I think maybe people don't know that he was a little bit in on the joke.
Yes.
He pushed it a little too far. He took it a little maybe too serious.
Well, it got him kicked off his record label that was owned by Disney at the time. The Southern Baptist group protested Disney because he was on Hollywood Records, which was owned by Disney, and that was that. He never had a major label after that.
Right. Yeah. Well, he would be the person we would put decorations up in our home if Halloween was like Christmas. He's definitely the true savior.
Saint
The patron
Danzig.
saint.
The patron saint of darkness, Glenn Danzig.
All things are possible through him.
Yeah, I love him.
Paul Bearer could also qualify as that if he was still around. He's with us in spirit, though.
He's with us in spirit. The Undertaker, always a great representation of the evils that can cloud men's minds.
Dustin's gonna be pissed he wasn't here when we
wasn't
start
here to
talking
talk
about
about
the
this.
Undertaker,
But also a force for good.
Definitely.
and a force for Harley Davidson motorcycles.
Oh, good grief. Well, Adam, I don't think you have quite talked about some films that you enjoy this time of year.
Well, one thing, this isn't a film, but it's something that stood out to me when I was a kid. It was a board game called Atmosphere, Fear, Atmosphere. And when we were kids, the concept of the game is like each person plays as a character. Like there's a mummy and a vampire and a werewolf or whatever, and there's all these colored keys around the board you have to collect, and you get all. At the beginning of the game, you get a slip of paper and you write your biggest fear. Okay, so you write your biggest fear on the piece of paper and you put it in this like little central tomb. And then you go around and collect keys, and once you collect all the keys, you go to the middle, you open, and you have to pull your own fear out, which is difficult because you have to have at least 3 people, and the game's on a time limit. But the thing that makes it cool and what made it stood out to me is it had a VHS tape that came with it. And there's a dude on there called the Gatekeeper. And so I forget the backstory on him, but he's from the Nether Realm or the Underworld or something. And the whole time there's like this storm scene going on the screen and the countdown timer from an hour. And every once in a while he'd pop up. And he'd go, "Stop! Whose turn is it next? Speak up!" And you'd have to say like, "Yes, Gatekeeper," or "Yes, my Gatekeeper." And if you didn't, you lose a turn or whatever, or you get punished. And he would just fuck with people the whole game, steal their keys, make them give stuff away, put them in the abyss or whatever. But the thing is once you played it a couple of times, it's a VHS tape, so you know when he's coming. So you deliberately like count your spaces on your turn real slow, knowing he's about to pop. And then as soon as the other person's turn, boom! Whose turn is it next? Speak up! But now they have it. They re-released it a few years ago, and it's got a DVD, so it's randomized. And there's different paths to it. So now he pops in, and you don't know when he's coming. And we played when I bought it a few months ago with some other friends, and I think everybody got a kick out of it. But someone won with like 13 seconds left on the timer. Like it gets frantic there towards the end.
Yeah, that's.
Y'all still haven't played with me.
I haven't played.
We need to bust that out.
You know my thoughts on board games,
yeah.
but ones
Especially
with
VHS ones.
interactive gatekeepers, I might give a go.
And the makeup's pretty good.
Oh, on the Gatekeeper.
Yeah, but since they did the DVD, they've redone the guy and his makeup from the old one.
Do you still have the VHS of the old one?
No, a friend of mine had that one.
We'll have to find that
We
one
have
on
to
eBay.
find that, and I want to play it on VHS.
They have the entire VHS tape on YouTube.
Oh, on
that
YouTube?
you can watch.
Nice.
And
nice.
so you can watch that, but the DVD they've added some pretty sweet, CG effects now
I bet.
that are garbage.
I bet it looks like Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
It's not
CG.
that bad. It's a little improved upon that. But that's a lot of fun. As far as movies are concerned, I mean, there's some staples you want to watch every year. You got to at least get a Freddy or a Michael Myers or a Jason in somewhere.
I think we've gotten plenty of those in here recently.
Yes, we have. So we've had our fill, and so I'm trying to think. My girlfriend right now, there's a lot of movies she had. Like, if it's in the past 10 years, she's seen quite a few movies. Older than that, and it's almost guaranteed she hasn't seen 90% of them, unless it was like a big blockbuster like a Jurassic Park or something like that. So we've been, spending time watching, movies you would think everyone has seen, like Back to the Future or the original Star Wars.
She hadn't seen these?
No, and she's been loving it. But so I'm
You
trying.
mean they made good movies before 1994?
I deal with the same thing a little bit with my girlfriend, but she's super like into it. She loves, like, we're going through Twin Peaks right now, and we watch Silence of the Lambs, and it's just like she's all about it right now.
And I think that's
trying to watch
like,
it all.
Isn't that something though that you think about now? Like think about a kid now. Okay, he's in 2014. He tries to show an older person these movies, like, you got to see Transformers, it's so good. And I hate to harp on that one. There's other examples of really bad ones, and you would say it sucks, I hate it.
Right.
But you can take these younger people and you can show them movies from the 80s and the 70s, and they love them.
Right.
They love them. You know, what does that say?
I'm not dating like a 12-year-old, by the way. You're just saying younger people from these days.
She was barely born in the 80s, though.
Yeah, she barely made that cutoff, but I think it's...
Well, I won't tell you when my girlfriend was born.
Yeah, but I think we take it for granted, the fact that we're all, you know, kind of nerdy and grew up just liking what we like and having exposure to so many things. And so many people, they just have kind of ordinary friends, and they go their whole life never being exposed to a lot of stuff that we take for granted.
The worst thing that can ever happen to you is ordinary friends.
Right, yeah. You need people that have something quirky or, you know, interesting.
Yeah,
about
there's
it.
nothing that any of us don't enjoy or like that someone didn't introduce us to or get us into. You know, it's rare that someone just finds those things, you know.
So I found it's the case with people when you start showing them some of this older stuff, or even recent stuff that's just kind of fringe or, you know, didn't get a lot of mass appeal. It's not that like they were too good to see it. It's just no one really presented it to them.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're not too good for it.
They're
for
not
sure.
like turn their nose up like, oh, I don't like old stuff or what. It's
Well,
never
we know
that.
someone who said they will not watch a black and white movie, and that most movies before the 80s are garbage.
Which isn't true.
Whoa, done.
But we watched the original Halloween last week.
Classic.
We watched The Conjuring, which I had never seen, but she had. Like I said, past 10 years.
What do you think?
The Conjuring, I had high expectations for it. I really liked Insidious. Haven't seen the second one of that yet. Did you say you had? Is it any good?
Not the second one.
You haven't seen? Okay. The Conjuring, I was hoping it was going to be a little scarier than it was, but there was it didn't put a foot wrong in my mind. Like, it did not do anything wrong that made me just be like, oh, that sucked, or why'd they do that, or like everything they did, the way they behaved, like even if it was the fact that, I'm not going to give away anything in the movie, but like when they start hearing noises in the house and they all like sleep in a central family room, like that seems like a logical thing you would do. You wouldn't just be like, well, everybody go back to their individual bedrooms and we'll hope it out for the
kind of
best.
it has supernatural elements, but it sort of took an exorcist approach where it was like, what would happen if this really happened in your house? And they react quite naturally. I mean, they leave the house pretty early on. They do things that you would do, but
and that's one thing that takes you out of a horror movie more than anything, is when people make like, why would they do that? Why did they, like, even watching the original Halloween, how many times
don't even talk bad about it.
I'm just gonna say though,
if you
how
have any
many
critique,
times-
it's wrong.
How many times did Jamie Lee Curtis drop the butcher's knife?
That shit was slippery, dude. They did not make them. You know how Cutco makes them now. The knives are a lot more
Cut above. They're cut above.
But it's rewarding to be able to share these experiences with people that have never had them before.
Right.
My wife grew up in a bubble. She was from China. So anything before Avatar really is open game. She hasn't seen anything. So we've had the opportunity to go back and watch pretty much everything. I mean, and she'd seen some stuff, pirated online, but it's a great experience to get to share all of this with other people.
Yeah, that's my Rachel is very similar to me in the fact that she rented and grew up on horror movies. She watched horror movies. She has zero restrictions on her growing up. Her mom, whatever you want. They rented Faces of Death.
I didn't even know you could rent that.
Yeah, you could rent it. Well, wherever they were living at the time, Mississippi, you could rent it.
They had to go in the back room with the porn. It was back there.
Man, like her and some buddies
Rent a
rented
handgun
that.
and
It was
Faces
at
of
a like a Stop and Shop. They rented movies there as well, and they would get tons of horror movies. She saw pretty much everything. So through the years, there's definitely been stuff I've been able to show her. I think we kind of talked about that with our Manhunter review this week. That we watched that, and she really loved it. But yeah, with my daughter, it's definitely, I catalog movies in my mind. Like, what age can I show her this while I'm watching things?
It's always going to be too soon, probably.
Well, no.
She's 4 this year. She can probably see Hellraiser.
Maybe. You know.
Hellraiser 6.
But I watched Killer Clowns yesterday. That'll be coming up on this week's reviews. And it's PG-13. It doesn't have anything really. There's only one scene of violence, really. But I was like, oh, I cannot wait to show her this. Because it's creepy, but it's not like too bad. Doesn't have any ridiculous cussing, nudity, or extreme violence. It's like, oh, this one's putting that right on the list as one of the first ones. And I know Rachel and her sisters saw it, and it scared them to death back in the day. So can't wait to show her Killer Clowns.
Well, and one of the ones we watched last night, I know is one of Dan's favorites. We watched Let the Right One In.
Oh,
Probably
God,
me and Brandon's favorite movie the past 10 years.
We're going to be here for another hour talking about that.
Yeah, that movie changed me.
Now, this is the Swedish original.
Yes.
I've never seen the remake.
I saw it.
I saw the remake.
Yeah.
Is it also called Let the Right One In?
It's called
called Let Me In.
Yeah.
Let Me In.
Not very good.
Good play. Good.
It's
twist.
an unnecessary film.
Absolutely unnecessary. No need for it. Wasn't badly made
No,
in
it's
any
not a bad
way,
movie.
but there's
It has
one.
some good actors in it that I like watching.
It does. It's missing a couple of things that the original had. One including the soundtrack, which was one of the best soundtracks of
Unbelievable.
all time, and the ending. And so you watched the original yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it ends in the same way.
Right.
It's just when the little boy looks up and he's supposed to see her in the American remake, they just cut to the end of the credits. She's never there. They don't show her. To me, that was such a great
Right.
thing about.
Why do people feel the need, like filmmakers, to feel the need to take something that's satisfying and they want to go, counter to that to make it like, esoteric or whatever? We're like, we won't show it and we'll just leave it open to interpretation. It's like sometimes, I know there's a tendency to like not have the happy ending or go away from that, but sometimes you want that fulfillment or that,
It's
reward.
such a conflicting happy ending, though, because the happiness is based on the
Right.
murder of 3 children, as well as him leaving his mother
Yeah.
and going on the run. And you know that he's going to become the old man at the beginning of the movie.
Exactly.
His life is over. He is now been, I don't want to use the word tricked, but this vampire
relegated to
is
that.
now got him. And as much as you wanted that to happen, it's not happy. It's not good for him.
Well, and in the other way that the author actually, he suggested that he became a vampire too. She turns him.
I see.
But either way, that's not a good existence.
No.
Either way, it's a terrible existence.
Yeah, it's a great one. That was one of my favorite movies of the past 10 years. We saw that without knowing a whole lot about it, Brandon and I.
Yeah.
And it was one that stuck with you for a couple of days. It just would not leave, and you just couldn't stop thinking about it. It was such a pleasure. It was what going to the movies is really there for.
That's kind of how I judge if a movie is good to me these days, because I've seen so many movies. It gets hard to sometimes understand like what is in your mind a good movie anymore. And for me, it's like if I keep thinking about the movie several days after I saw the movie, it was a good movie because it affected me in a certain kind of way.
Right.
And Prisoners was like that for me. I don't know if anyone saw. Did anyone see
didn't
that
see that.
one? That torture one with Hugh Jackman.
I remember. I didn't,
It's a new one, and I don't see a ton of new releases, but I went and saw that one in theaters, and it sticks with you.
Yeah. Yeah, even if sometimes a movie you leave thinking that wasn't very good, but you keep thinking about it, it can, like for me, Under the Skin was one that Rachel and Dustin and I went and saw, and I was very excited to see it. The trailer made it look amazing, and then seeing the movie, I was very disappointed, but then kept thinking about it, and not just thinking about the nudity in it, as some of you may be thinking, but just the what it was about and the way it took place, and I want to see it again. Like, I'm now very tempted. If I see that one for a pretty good price, I'll probably get it and watch it again. So, movies definitely, the first time you see them may not do them the
Right.
justice,
Some things warrant rewatching. And that
Yeah,
was the
it's
first
not-
time I had seen it again since you.
What did she think of it?
I think she really liked it.
Yeah, it's the best. What are some movies for you, Jonathan, this time of year or growing up that you remember?
I watched Army of Darkness again last night. And what I really, when I was younger, I didn't remember it was so short.
It's real short.
Credits were rolling at like an hour, 16 minutes. And it's just like in the very beginning, it's so much fun when he goes into the well and, gets the chainsaw and everything. And then at the end, when he's back in present time again, it's just really fun. And I used to watch that one a lot when I was a little younger, but I probably got into that a little later as well. But with me, I didn't even get really into movies until like late high school. So I was always just a casual movie watcher growing up because I was always so involved doing different things, sports and things like that. But, my sister watched a lot more movies than I did. So if I was watching a movie, it'd be watching what she was watching, which was usually something stupid because she was a middle school girl watching dumb movies,
The Craft.
The Craft is Rachel's favorite, like one of her favorite
The
movies.
Faculty.
I don't think I've ever seen
The
it.
Faculty's a good
I
one.
just
Here's
saw it
one
last night on Netflix.
that Disturbing Behavior. You remember that one?
It sounds familiar.
Katie Holmes and James, I can't think of his name, but it came out, you would have been in middle school probably when it came out, late 90s.
Yeah.
So fun, really bad, but really fun kind of.
I remember my sister was really into the Scream movies.
The Scream movies, yeah.
Because those were all coming out, like,
Right.
during that time. So those ones, I was obsessed with the Alien movies, even though they're not really horror, but they're pretty scary at times. And when you're young, they're exceptionally scary. So
Yeah,
I really
both
like
of you,
those.
Adam and you, speak of that with a lot of nostalgia.
Oh yeah, because those were
Aliens.
ones that my dad really liked too, and I had the 3-pack VHS Alien 1, 2, and 3 before Resurrection came out.
Yeah.
and I remember we went on Thanksgiving night to see Resurrection in theaters, and
Yeah, my dad took me to see Resurrection in
Really?
theaters as well, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
and it was
You loved it.
really fantastic, best of the series, I think.
Here's what I'll say about the Alien movies, though. It's almost like a training ground for like future awesome directors. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like
true.
people really cut their teeth on the Alien movies, which is kind of cool to go back and see. It's like, oh, that you got Fincher and all these people making them.
Cameron and Ridley Scott.
And then Jean-Pierre doing the Resurrection, going to do Amelie and
Right.
Delicatessen and all those. So it's like
Yeah, definitely.
good movies.
Yeah, that's a great series, and especially the first one is to me almost up there with the classic monster movies of the old days. The Alien it's a fun one. Recently, the Alien game came out. Adam, have you seen anything about the Alien Isolation? Being an Alien fan, what is your thoughts?
Well, I bought there was the Colonial Marines one. I didn't have that one. Just whatever one that, I guess it was Aliens versus Predator.
Yeah, it was
that came out 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I got that one, and it was all right. I mean, it's fun to play for a little while. But I've kind of been soured on it after the Colonial Marines came out, and I think did poorly.
Very poorly.
And
Yeah.
so what's the new one? Isolation?
Isolation. It's actually Ripley's daughter on a very Nostromo-esque ship, and there's an alien on there. It's very survival horror-ish.
Okay,
it's
so
not a real
it's
shoot
not-
'em up.
oh, that's a good approach.
Seems like something you might be interested in.
Well, and that's one thing I've been doing. It's harder and harder the older I get to find movies that scare me.
You're not going to.
And so the route I go to get scared is play scary video games, survival horror games and stuff. So I've been going back and trying to play through some of that. And The Last of Us, when it came out not that long ago, that's
No, real creepy.
real creepy. And I'm playing through the GameCube Resident Evil remake. I'm almost done with that.
You
And
need to be doing videos on that.
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, talking about aliens though, Alien Resurrection was written by Joss Whedon, which brings us to something else I want to ask you guys about. The Avengers trailer.
Cutting your teeth. Famous people cutting their teeth on.
Yeah, I don't think
on
he
the
was
Alien
pleased
series.
with how it turned out, but
No.
nonetheless, he wrote it. And, the Avengers 2 trailer came out this week, and I'd like to get everybody's opinion on that. It was leaked, but Marvel ended up putting it out anyway. They didn't plan to put it out till next week, but, it is what it is. Brandon, how do you feel?
It looks cool, and obviously it's very visually impressive, and it's bigger than Star Wars now. Marvel is huge, and Disney is putting so much money into this, and they're building the universe out to where they've got movies planned for the next 10 years. But I didn't read really a lot of the comic books about the Avengers, so I don't know what Ultron is, and it's not compelling to me to go see that film. Based off of the title.
What was your thoughts of the first one?
It looked cool, and it was Downey Jr. is funny and he's cool as Stark, and my wife loves to look at Chris Evans' pecs, and
I think we all do.
Yeah, he had a good.
doesn't?
Yeah.
And
What a hunk.
visually, it's a cool film, but I'm not really.
You're not invested in it.
Not invested. I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's just a visual blockbuster.
Right, and that's what's been very typical of me of the superhero movies.
Oh, you've never seen the first one, am I
general.
correct?
I finally did.
Oh, you did watch it.
Like 6 months ago or whatever. I just don't get pumped for them. I mean, when they first started really catching steam back in high school when the Spider-Mans were coming out and the first X-Men movies, I went to see those. Like, oh, cool, because it really hadn't been. Other than the Batman series, there really hadn't been that much of a, enough film attention paid to these characters. So they're starting to do it. And initially it was exciting, but I think it's just become more of a visual thing where it's just the visuals are going to be very impressive, but the storyline's not going to grab me. I'm not going to really care that much about the characters because I don't have this prior. My favorite comic book hero is Batman, so the other ones I didn't read that much of, or I'm not that vested in the characters, and I just think they translate to awesome action films. But as far as like getting a quality story where you're really invested in the characters and you're concerned that are they going to make it, they're going to make it out at the end, and I don't know. I just don't get that pump for them.
What I did like about the new trailer, which I thought looked pretty cool, was it looks a lot grittier and a lot more serious. Like the Avengers feels very much like big budget action movie. This one, you've got the shot of the Hulk like huddled, and
looks like something bad happened.
Yeah, it looks. You get a sense that like maybe things may
The
not
second one.
turn out. Yeah,
the second part of, if this is going to be a trilogy, the second part of the trilogy is generally a little bit more of a downer, and I generally like that.
Yeah, that
like
should
the
make it
downers,
better
yeah.
because in the first one, like, that's what I mean. The thing when you walk in is it's almost like they make them too lighthearted.
yeah.
Well, let me speak on the first one for a moment, and
It's my beef with Superman.
well, yeah, we can talk about that one day too. I'd prefer Dustin to be
Yeah, not
here
without
for that
Dustin.
one. But the first Avengers for me was not just a good movie, but a testament to what someone can do with something I would almost consider impossible.
Right.
That makes the Avengers a little bit better to me, knowing that he not only took these characters, which they had really spent the time to build up with their own movies, and he brought them into the story. But if you hadn't seen those movies, you're still introduced to every single character in a nice way. You're given something about them. He did something that box office wise, did amazing. But I think was a true achievement in taking characters and a universe and bringing them together in a way that not only pleased the fans, but pleased the general audience as well.
Because it's a total minefield you're walking into. When you
It's
have these established
impossible.
things, you're just going to have fanboys lashing. And that's the thing is I'm more on that side, a casual film goer than a
Right.
fanboy.
Right.
So, and I still enjoyed it. I was able to enjoy it and get involved in the characters. I mean, I know some about them, but I don't know the full backstories, and I didn't read all the comics. But yeah,
Well, that's the great thing about these
task he
movies. Is
did
you don't necessarily
impressive.
have to.
No.
They've created a universe cinematically where you just need to see the movies to keep up. And I, viewing the Avengers 2 trailer, knowing that he is directing it again, has given me a lot of faith that it will be good. But also, I mean, we don't have to introduce these characters again. So we're going to jump right into where they are, where they've left off, and we can get down to it. And I think that's going to be beneficial. Star Wars had to take its time to introduce the characters, but once Empire Strikes Back came around, that's when it really took off.
It would be interesting to see if this is truly a trilogy, maybe them taking some sharp turns in the second film that you wouldn't expect, like the Civil War storyline.
That's
Marvel,
supposed to be coming.
where Captain America is killed. Kill Captain America in this movie.
Well, they show a broken shield, but we know Captain America 3 is coming out, and Robert Downey Jr. confirmed that he as Iron Man will be co-starring in it. He's not just going to pop up. He's co-starring in Captain America 3, which to me, if you're a comic book fan, they have done it so well. I mean, how excited that I'm actually excited for an actor to come play this character in a movie shows the achievement there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
but I hope we have an ending in sight. I do get concerned that it's just going to go on forever and ever and just reboots and remakes and.
Well, why wouldn't it though with the money they're making?
I know,
there's
but
so
it's
many
just-
characters to pull from. As rights start dwindling back into them, they can pull more from other characters and do more things.
I mean, the thing is, this point is the current cast is going to age out eventually. I don't think Chris Evans can keep the body up like that forever unless he starts taking HGH. And I think that Downey Jr. is probably going to get tired of the film series. I mean, then Infinity War and all that crazy stuff to do, and Thanos. I mean, it's,
yeah, they're doing that's not happening in the second one, so we can only assume that will be happening in the Guardians of the Galaxy Avengers mashup,
Yes.
which will probably deal with the Infinity Gauntlet. But did any of you see Guardians? Did anyone here see Guardians? Okay, well, I think Guardians is one that if you guys take a look at that, you'll have a lot of confidence put in you that these guys know what they're doing over there, and it's an example to other studios on how to take existing IPs and really do something with them that's special. I think DC is about to take a shit sandwich on every one of their characters. I think that is going to be a complete, total disaster. Thoughts? They've planned the next 10 years out. They've told you all the movies that are coming out. They already planned them out without any build-up. No one asked for these. No one was like, give me Wonder Woman movie, give me a Cyborg movie. But hey, we got them planned.
Well,
and they're all going to pop up in Batman vs. Superman? They're going.
No, all that is an example of it's just a bunch of fat cat producers sitting in a room together, being like, "Hey, I see the kids like all these Marvel films. You know what we need to do?" And that's so just people in business who's in a boardroom that haven't touched a comic in 40 years.
They're all saying, what are our properties and how can we make the similar profits that Marvel's making?
Right.
And let's do it as fast as we can.
At least, and thank the heavens that Bale and Nolan did not come back and do another film, because I mean, it was a cool contained trilogy, and they were willing to write any check that they wanted to get them to come back, and they wouldn't do it. So I think it's going to suck. I think everything.
I think it is. I think Man of Steel was just precursor to that. We'll hold that for another day, though.
Yeah.
But movies aside, Superman is just he's hard. I think he's a hard character because he's just so overpowered. It's hard to have a realistic fight scene and actually
that's my biggest
defeat
gripe.
You can't defeat a Superman, really. I mean, it's hard to.
The only way is to play up the duality of Clark Kent and Superman and how those relate to the character,
which they did none of. That's what makes him interesting.
Superman Returns did a better job.
Agreed.
Than this.
Yeah, we'll have that discussion another day. We'll have a Superman discussion one day. But Halloween is coming up this Saturday. Friday, that's right. Not this Saturday. I'll be celebrating all weekend long.
That's right.
But we've also got the next festival coming up. We've decided on Hellraiser. And so, we're working on that, getting the date set up for that. But we just wanted to let everybody know that we've got the podcast is on iTunes now. I don't know. Can you search for it on iTunes, Brandon, or do you have to go through the other? Well, I'll put a list in the info at the bottom of so everyone can start following the podcast that way. If they don't want to listen on YouTube, they can subscribe through their podcast subscriptions.
It's on Podomatic. I believe that's what we're using, and we'll have it set up where it'll be on iTunes shortly. I just haven't had a chance to set up all the.
You can subscribe through iTunes, but I think you have to click on our Podomatic site to do that. I don't think you can search in there and find it yet.
But we'll get that set up.
We're working on all that.
What app do you use on your?
It's Podcast Republic on Android is what I use.
And I use AntennaPod, and I had no problems getting it on there in my list.
Yeah, me either. It worked out pretty easy. So we're working to get that easier for everybody to be able to listen each week. So once again, let us know what you think. Send us any comments or questions. We'd be happy to do some questions and answers for everybody. But I think that'll do it for this week's podcast. Appreciate you guys coming and being a part of it. And for everybody listening, thanks a lot. And we'll talk to you next time. Happy Halloween.